So like infinity, you know, it goes beyond the powers of reason, or like a really big tornado, sublime landscape, just goes completely beyond, you know, completely, you can't really comprehend the power of it. So that for Lyotard is the sublime, and for Lyotard, the postmodern sublime is, I don't know if I've got it actually, the postmodern would be that which puts forward the unpresentable, the sublime, in presentation itself. So when aesthetics specialises in itself, it presents the sublime, not in, say, a tornado, which is references something else. It shows it in itself. So you see eventually the picture distort like a Picasso, and you eventually get something like Jackson Pollock, and you eventually see things like urinals as well. It's what the hell's that? You know, it's no longer art. It goes beyond art. It's something which is no longer what you consider art to be, and it goes beyond your understanding, your previous categories. It creates new ways of thinking. Again, think of paralogy. It goes beyond the categories and normal ways of thinking about things. And this is what for Lyotard aesthetics should be about. It's in presentation itself. So, just to start again, what then is the postmodern? This is the last slide, by the way, so to finish off with Q&A. It is undoubtedly a part of the modern. A work can only become modern, this is a wordplay, only if it is first postmodern. It's got to go beyond itself. You know, things. You know, when you think of things progressing, you think of art as some sort of linear progression. He doesn't believe that. He just thinks of it as going beyond the previous concepts. So just spreading out and collapsing and deconstructing itself rather than progressing. So, and this is also just a play on words, because modern in the sense of avant-garde, postmodern in the sense of sublimity. So it's a really good wordplay. So don't get caught too much on that. Postmodernism, thus understood, is not modernism at its end, but in its nascent state. So not modernism at its end. You know, people think 60s, what can people do now? It's all at an end. Not the case for Lyotard. You know, there's no sense of progression. You know, things haven't come to an end because things didn't start. It's in its nascent state, and this state is constant. Nascent, being born, changing, and it's constant. Things are constantly being born, new ideas are coming. We're constantly presenting things in ways which we didn't understand them before. We're just creating new games. We're creating new ways to understand things. And so, I don't know, even though I personally have a master in my other two things, Lyotard's aesthetics are just far more compelling. You know, it's a very, very, very interesting way of understanding postmodern aesthetics with galleries and things. So the postmodern would be that which puts forward the unpresentable in presentation itself. A postmodern artist or writer is in the position of a philosopher. The text he writes, the works he produces, are not governed by pre-established rules. Those rules are what the work of art itself is looking for. This is the idea of Kant's idea of reflective judgment. Because Kant separated reflective judgment, that's of trying to, you've got a case, you've got something, and you can't put it into a previous category because there's no category there. It's not determinate judgment. You're not coming to something with prejudiced, determined ideas, some sort of messing, as I say. You're just making it up as you go along. When you're painting, you've got a slash there. You're just making it up. You've got an open mind about things. I don't know. Is there any questions? I can't think of anything more to say. Just about the whole thing, or is it perfectly understandable? So I've said quite a lot. Did anyone just not pick up anything who's just here to enjoy the performance? Yeah. Sorry about that.
That was understandable.
Thanks. Is there any like? I'll just I'll do a Q&A now. Sorry, the one back.
I was just wondering if you knew Lyotard read German and his husband the other guy read in French.
That's a really good question. Yeah. I don't know, to be honest. He might have done. You know, it's a very, very interesting question. But yeah.
It's funny thing having the French guy that's kind of from French tradition. The German guy and then having
well, when it came to the fact that I don't glance to it, but I've got quite an interesting kind of like story. When it came to the fact when they were just throwing away conservatives at each other, because Lyotard was saying, we're not the conservatives, you're the conservatives, and Habermas all Habermas the same. He's got the Frankfurt School, by the way. The later generation of that, the German lot, they're all saying, no, you're the crazy lot. And the way one sort of like arbitrary intermediate between them described it was the battle between French fries and Frankfurters. So, because he thought they were all nuts. So yeah. Anyone got any questions? Yeah. Sorry.
Curiosity in my part. This is that Habermas speaks about the segregation of society how does it interface something that moves backwards as opposed to just an outcome?
If something descends into fascism, and if that for Habermas would be a step back, if the system is once again reintegrated into the life world, into our general lives. So think of Nazi Germany. If again we're made just to work and to understand the world in terms of aesthetics. If things are put on like a degenerate art exhibition, the Nazis made a show of degenerate art, showing everyone saying what art is. They tried to really control people's minds like that, their aesthetics. Or they also tried to control people the way people thought in terms of science as well. They used evolution and Nietzsche and things to espouse some very horrible opinions about the Jews. That would be for Habermas very clearly a step backwards.
So he believes there's a trend then?
Well, when a society just gets to a certain point of, for example, considering the bourgeois revolution, when society gets to a point where there's a certain amount of trade and a certain amount of people developing a large amount of wealth, the people who own that wealth, who are creating the intellectual discourses, will eventually succeed in power from the aristocracy. So you just get one naturally moving on from the other, and there's no sort of meta-narrative or anything like that involved. It's just what will happen, and it's very, very convincing. So, I'm saying this is not a lecture on Habermas, so I'm constantly trying to defend him because I think it's a little bit unfair to, I don't know, just put forward Lyotard's position on this. Is there any other questions? Cool.
You mentioned earlier on about the modernist paranoia and the postmodernist schizophrenia being back up where it can.
No. First the metaphors. They've got loads of different meanings and terms, but so for schizophrenia, when you think of schizophrenia, it's just a metaphor. We're not actually schizophrenic. We are schizophrenic in the sense of we don't have, think of Baudrillard hyperreality. We can't really distinguish what's real, a reality principle, from just our language anymore. So that, and also there's things about splitting his identity and the way we understand the world. So think of some characters like Edward Said. His first name's Edward. He's in a Western intellectual tradition. His second name's Said. So he's writing about Orientalism. And I'm sure many people experience that just generally, just a crisis of identity. We don't really feel any national identities anymore, not even national borders. Paranoia. Think of something like Big Brother is watching you, constantly being watched, constantly worrying, living in a Stalinist society, worrying about the Cold War, worrying about World War II, living in these types of things. It's just two different psychologies that philosophers have tried to attribute to the modern and the postmodern, just to create some new ideas. Between the two. Any other things? No? Do you want to? Sorry, there's one here. Sorry.
One question about. I'm just thinking about like the semantic web and a holistic view. It just seems like they're fighting over this idea of heterogeneity. But like for Lyotard, what does he say about the unity of everything? I mean, I'm kind of confused. I know he's saying something about heterogeneity, but does he take a stance on?
Well, there's not really a unity of everything thought.
But he's talking about nodes and networks. So there is something about the rhythm being one thing, but it's a heterogeneous.
It is. It's not one thing. It's a plurality of loads of different things, all slammed and attached together. It's not just one thing. It's got no border. You can add things to it. You can take stuff away. Things will cross around and move around. It's a connection of loads and loads of different things. It's not just one thing. That's probably the best way to understand it. So the problem with those dots and those things is they should be like loads of different objects. One should be a brick and one should be a bird and things like this. It should be loads of different stuff all thrown together.